My parents rolled their eyes as I walked into the courtroom, wearing my old, threadbare suit, carrying 3 battered folders like armor. My brother whispered, "She'll never manage that money." Mom smirked, her voice dripping with condescension. "You've never been good with money," and just like that, I felt their judgment pierce me, but little did they know. By the end of the day, I would not only keep my $1.2 million trust, I would also leave them speechless. If you've ever been underestimated, dismissed, or betrayed by the people who were supposed to have your back, hit that subscribe button. Like this video, because today, you're about to witness a story where justice isn't just served, it's brilliantly executed. And trust me, you'll want to see every second. I grew up in a house where my parents had a habit of defining my worth by the numbers in their bank account and the marks on my report cards. My brother, the golden child, had their unwavering support. Me, I was the dreamer, the scatterbrained one, the child who supposedly could never handle responsibility. For years, I swallowed their criticism, the whispered doubts, the eye rolls that seemed to follow me from the kitchen to my bedroom. But I also worked quietly, meticulously, preparing for a day when their judgment would no longer matter. That day came when they petitioned the court to take control of my trust, a whopping $1.2 million, claiming I was incompetent and incapable of managing money. I remember the morning I stepped into the courtroom. My suit was old, slightly frayed at the edges, my shoes polished but scuffed from years of walking my own path. In my hands I carried 3 folders, each stuffed with documents, evidence, and my research a shield against the storm that was my family. Mom's eyes narrowed the moment she saw me. "She doesn't even know what a budget is," she muttered under her breath. My brother leaned in, grinning, certain that their plan would succeed. Their attorney, a seasoned shark with a reputation for winning against unprepared defendants, looked me up and down with a smirk, as if my ragged suit alone proved their case. The judge called the case, and I stepped forward, heart pounding but mind razor sharp. I introduced myself not as a scared daughter, not as the underdog they assumed me to be, but as the person I had become, a lawyer. "I've passed the bar," I said calmly, sliding my credentials across the table. Every eye in the room widened, every smug smirk faltered. The very people who had tried to undermine me were suddenly forced to reassess what they thought they knew. The courtroom buzzed with tension. My parents tried to maintain composure, but their confidence was cracking. Mom's lips pressed into a thin line, her eyes darting toward my folders. My brother fidgeted, his hands gripping the edge of the table. I could feel the shift in the air, the invisible scales of power tilting toward me. I began my presentation, folder by folder, point by point. I didn't just defend myself, I dismantled their claims with precision. Every accusation they made, every whisper about my incapability, was met with well-documented evidence of my financial literacy, my investments, and my understanding of fiduciary responsibility. I presented bank statements, investment records, and even a detailed budget plan for my trust. Every document meticulously prepared to prove that I was fully capable of managing my finances. Their attorney tried to interrupt, tried to throw me off balance, but I anticipated every move. It was as if I had rehearsed every possible objection, every possible insult, every attempt to undermine me. And when they realized I was prepared, truly prepared, their arrogance began to crumble. But the real moment of poetic justice came during cross-examination. Mom, determined to maintain her grip on power, tried to question my financial decisions. "You've never been good with money," she spat, her voice trembling with the need to assert control. I paused, looked her directly in the eyes, and smiled not cruelly, but with the quiet satisfaction of someone who knows the truth. "Funny," I said, "I seem to be the only one here whose financial decisions can be verified." I slid my folder across the table, revealing a detailed portfolio showing consistent growth over the past 5 years. The judge leaned forward, intrigued, while my parents froze, their own words coming back to haunt them. As the proceedings continued, I noticed subtle shifts in my parents' demeanor. Their confident assertions were now peppered with doubt. My brother, who had spent years mocking my dreams, now avoided my gaze entirely. I felt a rush of vindication, but also a strange calm. This wasn't just about proving them wrong, it was about reclaiming my power, showing them that underestimation has consequences. The turning point came when I presented a clause from the trust document that had been overlooked. It explicitly stated that control could only be transferred if I were deemed legally incompetent, which, as I had proven, I was not. The room went silent. Every eye, including the judge's, was on me. Mom's face paled. She opened her mouth, perhaps to argue, but no words came. My brother's confident posture slumped. Even their attorney, the formidable shark, looked caught off guard, as if he hadn't expected me to be this prepared, this unflappable. Finally, the judge spoke. Based on the evidence presented, the petition for conservatorship is denied. Silence hung in the air for a moment, heavy and profound. Then, slowly, realization dawned on my parents. They had underestimated me, assumed my incompetence, and for the first time, they faced the undeniable truth. Their daughter was more capable, more prepared, and more strategic than they had ever imagined. I walked out of the courtroom not just victorious, but transformed. The rush of vindication was intoxicating, but the deeper satisfaction came from knowing I had done it on my terms. I hadn't stooped to manipulation or deception. I had relied on preparation, intelligence, and the quiet confidence that comes from knowing your worth. Outside the courthouse, the winter sun felt warm on my face. Reporters whispered, neighbors stared, and even strangers offered congratulations. But it wasn't the recognition that mattered, it was the internal peace. The knowledge that I had reclaimed control over my life, my finances, and my dignity. Looking back, I realized the revenge wasn't just about money. It was about justice, fairness, and the reclaiming of a narrative that my family had tried to write without me. It was about showing that underestimation is a dangerous mistake, especially when the underestimated party is willing to fight, and willing to fight smart. Mom and my brother eventually tried to reach out, offering apologies thinly veiled as concern. I listened politely, smiled, and moved on. My trust remained untouched, my confidence reinforced, and my respect for my own resilience cemented. And perhaps the most satisfying part, every time I think of the courtroom, I remember the moment I told the judge I had passed the bar and the flash of disbelief on my parents' faces. That memory is worth far more than $1.2 million. It's a reminder that preparation, intelligence, and quiet perseverance can dismantle even the most confident opposition and leave them speechless in the process. The lesson here is simple. Never let anyone define your worth, and never underestimate the quiet ones. Justice isn't always loud or dramatic, it's earned, calculated, and sometimes profoundly satisfying. If this story gave you chills, or reminded you of a time someone underestimated you, hit that like button and subscribe for more tales of justice served with precision. Comment below. What's the most satisfying revenge you've ever witnessed? And remember, sometimes the quietest ones have the sharpest claws.